Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. In the name of God, the most gracious, the most merciful. Welcome to lesson 14 of lessons from my mother. I will have you know, I think I have 72 more to go. So I think I'll be done by the end of 2023. Ideally speaking, if I manage to do a lesson a week, I'll be done by 2023. And that's fine. Look, winter is here. When I started this series, you would see me in t-shirts and uh, uncovered hair, and the AC was on, and now I'm wearing a beanie and a thermal, which I run in, and I've just come back from my run. So um, times are changing, as is the weather and season. So let's keep up with it. A bit over a year to go, I'd say. I wouldn't say a bit. I'd say more than a bit. A bit and 20 more weeks. So that's quite a lot. Lesson 14 is about something that my mother has taught us from, Lord knows, grade 1, grade 2. And I'll explain it. I'll explain it through a parable, and the parable is very interesting. I'll explain it to you through a parable or a story. There was once a man who had to give an exam, and in the exam he had to write an essay, and the essay was supposed to be on a particular topic. Now, if you've been to Oxford, which is my school, and if you've been to St. John's, no, not St. John's, that's the biggest endowment. If you've been to All Souls College, if you've been to All Souls College, you'll find out, or anybody who's been there will tell you, that they have a very strict vetting process in All Souls. Other colleges you're placed at based on certain factors, but in All Souls, particularly in undergrad or masters, you have to do an exam. You have to do an exam, and sometimes in the exam you have to write an essay, and sometimes they just give you one word. So I know people who told me that there was an essay on the word water, water, and you have to write an essay on water. What do you do with that essay? So not about what are the qualities of water, not about do you drink water, not about why is water scarcity important to contest policy-wise. There's just one word, water. Write an essay on water. These things happen. But the larger picture here with this parable is that this man had to write an essay, and he was told that the essay that he will end up writing will be on the morning walk. Now, I don't know how many people are familiar with this concept today, because now we have the internet and now we have the 5 a.m. club, blah, blah, blah. But all around the world, particularly in warmer countries, there is the idea between the upper middle and upper classes of taking a stroll in the morning. So before your day starts, you go for a walk and you get some fresh air and everything, and then you come home, shower, have breakfast, then go to work. It's a very stately activity, but others, common folk like me, used to do it too. So this gentleman memorized an essay on the morning walk, and he memorized it, and he was like, okay, I am going to go and write, because in this circumstance, perhaps his language proficiency wasn't so high that he could just sit and write an essay on everything. So he had to memorize something. And he was told and convinced that you will be writing an essay on the morning walk. So he was confident. And he goes to the exam. When he went to the exam, he saw that there was indeed an essay, but it was on writing on the airplane journey. Now, please bear with me, because 20 years ago, these were common essays. If you opened a book in Pakistan on Urdu or English, there would be essays on my first trip to London, my school, my childhood friend. These were essays that we were taught. I don't know what's being taught these days in school, particularly because the amount of information on the internet is so much that you can't hold these kinds of essays anymore. Maybe you can, I don't know. But at that time, there were very good techniques of writing essays. So the essay that he received was the airplane journey, and he panicked. And he panicked. I have only memorized the morning walk essay. What am I going to do with this one? I can't write this. All he was able to put together was, I really enjoyed the airplane journey. As soon as I sat on the plane, I looked outside or looked down. As the plane took flight, I looked down and I saw people were doing the morning walk. And then the subsequent few pages was a great explanation of how the morning walk is important. He literally took his original morning walk memorized essay, and I'd say kept it 90-95% as it was, but just edited it to look like it ties into the airplane essay. And he completed it. And he passed, as far as the parable goes, or whether it's a true story, I don't know. He passed. And the lesson here was, if you can't speak French and you're in a situation where you're required to speak French, then try to think back to every French word that you know, every inflection, every tonality. Think back to all the knowledge that you have and leverage that. I don't know how many of you have seen the movie Limitless. Limitless came around 11 years ago with Bradley Cooper, Robert De Niro. It's a fantastic film. Talks about a particular pill that you take and it heightens your brain functions and you're able to see more and connect all the dots. Now, if you consume information like most of us do, a lot of it ends up in residues and storage sections which we don't really utilize. We don't have instant recall. We have long term and it just stores them. But if you train your brain enough, you're able to pick the memory out of it just like that. So in Limitless, he wasn't learning new information. He took a pill, which is what I'd never recommend. What I'm saying is the brain function is important. The brain function heightened so much that it started drawing parallels and patterns between all the information that this person knew. He didn't have to learn something new. He worked with what he already had. Use what you know. So my mom used to say this, it's better to try something than to leave a question unanswered. You never know, it might be the right answer. So you're sitting in an exam and you know algebra, but somehow you get a question which is beyond your reach. And you say, well, 2x equals 3y plus z, but it looks like this, or 3y plus 5, and I don't know, but I do know this. I can solve this equation for x and y. So I'll just solve it for x and y and try to do something there because that's what I know how to do. And lo and behold, many times you might be on the right track. You could be on the right track. It's happened to me. I've answered some things, particularly in math and physics, but also in other subjects. I've tried an answer, and the exam or the professor is like, yes, you're 80% correct. And you're like, wow, okay. But if you had never tried it, you would have never known that you would be 80% correct. And that builds you up further. Use what you know. So much so that when we have a lot of clients for Lachine, thankfully, for English and now also in French, who come to us and say, we need to write a personal statement of purpose. And we direct them to our website and they use the website to write it better. But if they come to us for one-on-one consulting, which we also receive, we say to them, they say to us, oh, I've read 15 other statements and I've saw this, saw that. And I said, no, nobody cares about that. Same goes for the CV, same goes for the cover letter, same goes for your statement of purpose, same goes for anything, even a LinkedIn profile, anything and everything that needs to be produced and about you. Write it simply like a story you're telling your 5-year-old self or 10-year-old self. Write it very simply. I want to go to Oxford. It's a great school. I love this subject. I've done this. I got this grade. I worked here. So I think I'll be good at Oxford. Write it like that. Write a very simple thing. Then all you need to do is analyze it and improve it. But the structure is there, and the structure comes from what you already know. You didn't have to invent something. This is the same advice at Lachine we give everyone. But I've also taught TOEFL. I've also taught IELTS before. I've also taught negotiations. And in negotiations, because I used to consult for the Turkish government, Ministry of Science, Industry and Technology, and in negotiations, I would advise them. One tactic in negotiation is the other party tries to throw you a curveball. So they'll say something along the lines of, "Well, your policy is very interesting, but I don't know if I understand the trivialities." And if I were in the room, they'd look at me and say, and indicating, "What's trivialities? Is that something I should be worried about?" And after having observed it a couple of times, I took aside the civil servants I was coaching, training, sorry. And I said to them, "Look, next time they throw you a word, sidestep it. Go around it and reiterate what you already know." So say something along, if they say, "Oh, we're not sure about the trivialities," respond with something along the lines of, "We can deal with the trivialities later, but right now, this is what we're saying." And just reiterate your points. You see the same in law, you see the same in academia, you see the same in politics, you see the same in marketing, you see the same in every industry of somebody who's successful. If they want to sidestep a gotcha moment, if they want to sidestep somebody trying to make them look stupid or trying to gaslight them, the best advice is to stick to what you know. That also allows you to highlight what you don't know. So if trivialities or some particular word was so important and it kept coming up, you can also say, "Well, we know this 80% and this is what we're saying, but why don't you tell us about this other 20%?" Use what you know, and then it will also allow you to learn things that you don't know, because we can always learn something new. So I can hear people already saying, "Oh, you're teaching people how to preserve their ego, or you're teaching people how to bullshit their way." That's not what I'm saying at all. If you look at it correctly, the idiot focuses on the variable, the intelligent focuses on the concept. So if you look at the concept correctly, I'm advocating for integrity. I'm advocating for authenticity and honesty. Don't create, don't fabricate. Use what you know, adjust, amend, adapt. That's all we do. We've been doing this for hundreds and thousands of years. Survival is adaptation. Now, adaptation is using what you have already and fitting it to a newer challenge. You have legs? Great. If a tiger is chasing you, use those legs to run. If you didn't have legs, you wouldn't be able to run. Now, some of you might say, "Oh, we can run on our hands." Don't be an idiot. Please shut up. In the same line of thought, you have stones. Okay. Do you know how to sharpen them? Okay. Then you can make a spear. And if you can make a spear, you can hunt a certain type of animal. You can defend yourself. Do you have logwood? Do you have grass leaves? Do you have this? You can build a fire. And if you can build a fire, you can create warmth, you can create protection, you can cook food. You use what you already have, rather than imagining, "Oh, if I had Prometheus coming down to me and bringing me flames, I would do." No, no, no. Use what you have. And the same applies to what you have now. For example, thankfully, by the grace of the Almighty, I have some very nice suits now. And thanks to my parents, because they have incredible taste, they help me buy really nice suits. I have some good suits. But there have been times where I've just had a sports jacket. Just a sports jacket, which wasn't even mine. It's a hand me down. A sports jacket, I had somebody else's trousers, and I just had a pair of shoes. And I was able to put it together in such a manner that I was invited to public events, and I was at the same par as everyone else. I looked just as smart, just as formal. What's the word? Make it do or do without. Something along the lines of, "Well, life gives you lemons, make lemonade." You use what you know. You use what you have. I don't have $3,000 suits. What I did have at that time was a $50 coat. And I dry cleaned the coat, and I found a nice pair of trousers, nice pair of shoes, a shirt, a tie, a waistcoat, and I look perfect. I look fantastic. Same applies to my height. I'm 5'8". I'm not 6'5". I can't dunk a basketball like somebody who's 6'5", but I can do things on the ground level which they can't. There are advantages to every position. You just need to know what those are and leverage them properly. So this was Mum's lesson about being resourceful, I think that would be the final word to it. You need to be resourceful, and to be resourceful, you need to understand what resources you have at your disposal. And just writing is just one example, but I've given you many. So if you're feeling, for example, I was saying this to a friend of mine just a few weeks ago. They were saying, "Oh, I don't have enough money. I'm not going to afford this. I'm not going to afford that." And I said, "How much do you have?" And they said, "I have 180 or something." And I said, "Do you know what? When do you get your next paycheck?" And they said, "Somewhere in November." No, stipend, not paycheck. And I said, "Do you know, if you wanted, you could spend all of October in $180." And my friend was saying, "What? No, that's impossible." And I said, "No, I'll tell you how. Um, this is how you buy in bulk. This is how you do this. This is how you do that. You can delay this payment. You can do this. You can do that, and you can actually make it work. And you don't have to borrow. You don't have to steal. You don't have to beg, um, and you can actually make it work. Use the things that you already have." I think I think she listened. I think she listened, and I'm glad she listened, because people go through difficult times all the time. And at that time, rather than hoping, wishing, or cursing circumstances, understand them and understand how you can leverage them properly towards some success. I think that would be the best advice. But that's it for me today. Be resourceful. Use what you know. Another lesson from my mother. God bless her. I love her, and I hope to do everything in my life and power to make her and my father very, very happy and proud.